All right, welcome to the warm-up, and Jeff, we're playing December football, and there's a theme this week too, by the way. Let me ask you a question, Jeff. You like Star Wars, or do you like Empire Strikes Back?
Yeah, man, I'm a big fan of Star Wars. In fact, I think Empire Strikes Back is probably the best of all the Star Wars movies, at least at the time when it came out, because I felt like there was a lot of battles going on. And that's what we got this week, right? Some good
Absolutely.
battles.
And you just said it. You like the second better than the first. And that's we got
better.
A lot of rematches this week, so we're going to see if the second one lives up to the first one. And we get started on talking about some of these rematches when we start off with the lineup. Yeah, we have nothing but rematches, but let's start with one that's not a rematch. North Shore, the five-time state champions, taking on the Dickinson Gators, who do not like to lose. They just refuse to lose. No losses on the season. That game's bad at the University of Houston. What's your thoughts on this one?
Well, North Shore 11-2, Dickinson 13-0. Of course, North Shore coming off a 54-27 victory over the Cy Falls Eagles. That game wasn't as close as the score indicated. The Mustangs were up 14-0 in the first quarter. They had some nice short touchdown runs by Javoris Taylor and Marcus Stewart. Their defense was stout, at least for three quarters. Caleb Maryland had 3 touchdown passes, a couple to Jalen Bacard, the receiver there, 110 yards receiving. And Dorian Barnes, also a big threat for them. I like the fact that Maryland can do it all. He had 170 yards passing, 48 yards rushing. North Shore led that game 42-7 over at TD-ECU Stadium. That's key because that's where this week's game is being played. So I think that's something we need to look into. The North Shore offense, just like Dickinson, very balanced. But when you talk to John Snelson, the head coach over at Dickinson, Snelson told me point blank, you've got to match the physicality up front on the line of scrimmage that North Shore will bring. And they can bring it on both sides of the ball. They've also got the good special teams as well. I like the fact that Dickinson is averaging 51 points per game. They also have a strong defense. You might remember the Gators are coming off a 55-16 win over Straight Jesuit. Outside of the games against Pearland and Atascocita, Dickinson has beaten every other opponent by at least 21 points. Their big threat, Caleb Peterson, continues to impress on the ground, rushing for close to 80 yards. He can also catch the ball. He does a little bit of everything. In fact, he had 52 yards receiving to go with 3 touchdowns in the air. And it all starts with Lorenzo Aguirre, the quarterback, 151 yards passing, 3 touchdowns last week. Dickinson's 256 yards rushing was the most they've managed all season. So I think the keys are, Ward, we talked about the key to beating Straight Jesuit, remember, was stopping Johnny Hebert. Well, he had 142 yards rushing, but keep in mind, he averages about 300 per game. Yeah. So Dickinson did their job by swarming to him. And then, on top of that, Summer Creek bottled up North Shore's ground game when they squared off in the regular season. You might remember. But Summer Creek used pressure from the outside. They picked up some points with a pick 6. That game was also very low scoring for at least a half. So the key is make some plays, and see if you can't find a way to maybe even get some points from your defense. I think that could be key. And then on top of that, rain is in the forecast. At least during the day, Friday. I think by game time we'll be okay. The 2 quarterbacks will definitely be the ones that are going to have to make or break this game. But as Snelson mentioned also, the accuracy of his quarterback, the way he holds himself in the pocket is key. So look out. It's going to be a big game. NRG Stadium's not available. They're going to need every seat available at TD-ECU Stadium at U of H because these 2 teams can definitely pack in fans.
Yeah, you notice how I keep calling it University of Houston. I can't say all those letters. It's too many for me. How am I supposed to remember that? I can't remember that.
Hey, it's a sponsor deal, though. You got to.
No, I got you. Yeah, I think that's going to be the theme of our first 3 games here in the lineup. Whoever can make a defensive play or 2 or 3 can pull them out because we got offensive powers all the way through, including Summer Creek against CE King. That's 3 23-6A teams in the regional final. Tell me that's not the best district in the state, and I'll tell you you're a liar. Because they're at each other again. Summer Creek lost to CE King the first time after giving up way too many points in the first half. How do you see this one? Are they going to get their get back?
Well, like all 3 of these games, we kind of touched on this. Rematches, you got teams that are used to playing each other. CE King, here's kind of what I'm looking at. They took care of business winning 52-0 against Katy Jordan last week, while Summer Creek had the fight of their life against Katy, rallying to win by a point, 38-37. So, and then, hey, you know what? Let's go back to the last time these two teams met earlier this season. King jumped out to a huge lead, 42-7 at halftime. Easily the most shocking first half of football we saw all season. Deion Sims had 168 yards rushing against Summer Creek. Most importantly, that was in the first half for the most part. And Dylan Mitchell, he's only a sophomore. He had 38 yards rushing and a TD in that game. Even Timothy Potts had 54 yards rushing at QB for King and 160 passing, by the way, and a couple through the air as far as touchdowns. So King won that game 42-28. Last week, you might know, Potts had 153 yards rushing and 167 yards passing against Jordan. And they gave Sims some rest last week because they were up pretty big, but still managed over 400 yards on the ground. Meanwhile, Summer Creek, as I mentioned, they trailed Katy 21-7, who scored on their first 3 possessions in the first quarter, I might add. But the Bulldogs made a huge play on special teams with a kickoff return for a touchdown. That was the turning point. And before you know it, the game was tied at 21. Braylon Causey had a big game, not only as a running back, but had a big touchdown catch. Noah Spinks, I love the way he plays, man. Close to 200 yards passing, 3 touchdowns. He gets the ball distributed to guys like Jamaica Jones, Benny Easter, even Trenton Thomas had a big catch. Probably the most memorable one. It was his one and only catch, but that was the game winner, as it turns out, late in the game. And, of course, Trey Brown stepped up for Summer Creek as well against Katy after missing some time earlier this year with an injury. He had 3 catches for 44 yards. But here's what I'm worried about. Summer Creek gave up 225 yards rushing to Katy running back Trey Hill alone on defense. That is a concern going up against Deion Sims and Timothy Potts. Each game is different, though. That's why it's so important to get out there and get an early lead. You want to dictate the down and distance and, of course, get that third down manageable. That's going to be key in this game. King has proven they can do it. Summer Creek needs to still prove they can do it on both sides of the ball.
Yeah, that's going to be fun, man, because, Summer Creek did dominate him in the second half. That's going to be wild. I'll try to check out that one somehow online while I'm waiting for my game to be done with or something, because that's going to be a good one. Or maybe I check out Iowa Colony, Richmond Randle, another repeat game, another game where Richmond Randle had fumbling problems in the first half and they were down 21-0 Iowa Colony and came back and won that game by a score. And then this past week, as you're going to tell us, Bastrop came down and said, hey, we want to play with you. And Richmond Randle said, here, take 83 and go on back home. And Iowa Colony had to squeak one out. So tell me what you think about this one.
An 83 burger. Go figure. Yeah, Richmond 13-0, Iowa Colony 12-1. The only loss, of course, coming to Randle, Richmond Randle, of course. Now, Randle is coming off a game in which they scored 83, as we mentioned, against Bastrop. And that's a team that, quite frankly, was pretty good on defense. But Landon Williams-Callis, that's all you got to know. 220 yards per game, close to 50 touchdowns this year. Best running back in the area, maybe the state.
And he'll be back next year.
And he'll be back.
We ain't done with him yet. That's all.
And you know what? He was nursing a hamstring on top of that. But it surely didn't show against Bastrop. Ashton Johnson, big threat receiver for them. About 63 yards receiving per game. Had a nice touchdown last week. I think that's his 9th. And, of course, Tyler Skrabanek, the quarterback, 28 touchdown passes. He can get it done through the air. So big 1-2 punch right there with the air and the ground game. And I like Noriel Dominguez. Of course, we handed him out a bobblehead earlier this year. Big threat.
Sack. Yeah, he had a big sack last week.
Yeah, and he makes some plays too. Forces fumbles. He's all over the place out there. I think they even let him play a little tight end every now and then. I notice he makes some catches every now and then. Of course, Iowa Colony got up on the Brenham Cubs last week 14-0, but then had to hold on for dear life. They won it 31-30. Of course, they had the edge in first downs, by the way, 23-18, but the Cubs made some big, huge plays, which the Pioneers defense will have to cut that down this week because, we know Randle is known for big plays, especially with Callis. But Aaron Tenner, keep out an eye out for him. 233 yards rushing against Brenham. That was a huge help. And, of course, Carson White, the Iowa Colony high school junior quarterback. Also, just a huge threat on the ground as he is in the air. Had 118 yards rushing to go with 113 passing against Brenham. Almost 2,900 yards passing and close to 600 rushing for the season with close to 50 touchdowns. So White, who missed 2 games at the end of the regular season due to a sprained shoulder in his throwing arm, that happened against Fort Bend Marshall, October 24th. I'd say he's about 90% healed. They'll need almost 100% from him this week against Randle. So get him healed up because you're playing the best 5A team in the state, in my opinion. But White's favorite target, keep an eye out for Jaden Warren, of course, who decommitted from the University of Houston. He's looking at Texas A&M now, has 21 touchdowns. Of course, Boogie Warren, as he is known. I tell you what, Ward, he looks so much stronger than he did earlier this year when I interviewed him. I saw him on the sidelines and was just like, he's a full-grown man now. And also, Kenai Watts. I liked what he does in the defensive secondary. 4 picks, couple fumble recoveries. He's going to be key because listen to this stat. Iowa Colony got torched last week by Brenham, who almost had 340 yards passing against the Pioneers. So they got to put an end to that.
I'll tell you what, you're making my decision easy for me. I've been looking forward to this game, but I'm kind of falling off a little bit. I mean, Iowa Colony needed those 3 turnovers just to lose by 7 last time. There's no way Williams College is going to fumble it a couple times. It's looking more and more like a rematch between Randle and Sock in the final because I truly believe whoever wins this game will be in that final game. They're not going to get much competition at a Region 4.
Agreed.
But hopefully Iowa Colony pulls out everything, does everything. We've been waiting for this matchup. They got to this point, so they have something. So we'll see what these guys know about each other. Another last thing, I hope Coach Randle, now that he knows what he has, he schedules a little better in the non-district. He had a lot of clunkers in there. Now that he knows what kind of team he has and what kind of program he's built, this realignment, hopefully he'll schedule better, maybe play a couple 6A teams. He did play Travis this year, but maybe a little bit more, even more. Maybe go across the state a little bit and play some of these other teams. Sure. So we can see what you got. All right, let's. Another fun team to watch is the Crawford Chargers, who I got to see last week. They just keep on winning. Another team 2 years in existence, and now they're in a regional final against state runner-up Kilgore. We're going to talk to them because they're moving up from 4A to 5A next year. This is their last run, their first and only run. But I got a chance to talk to David Action Jackson over there at Crawford, and he'll tell us what he thinks about that Kilgore game.
The Houston area Chevy dealers. Visit your nearest Chevy dealer to test drive our award-winning products. Serving up the best treats and eats in Texas. Stop by DQ and treat yourself before and after the game.
That's right. David Jackson joins us now from Fort Bend Crawford, and they, I'm going to tell you something, but you don't need to know nothing because you already knew it. To open the doors in 2023, 2 years later, you're sitting in a regional final game with the defending state runner-up. Talk to me about just how this program has evolved to the point where, you barely get your feet wet, and now you're a 12-1 squad playing, 4 weeks into the playoffs.
Yeah, I think that first and foremost, hats off to our young men after that first round playoff exit last year. They just went to work. Our leaders sat down with me and we met about what are the things we want to attack in the off season. And most of it wasn't football. It's about creating a better bond, a more relationship, growing up, holding each other accountable. And then they set 2 goals. They said they wanted to win the district championship and they wanted to go win the state championship. And they knew that there were a lot of steps along the way between district championship and state championship. And we mapped those out, and those kids, they went to work to get after it. And then our coaching staff, man, they're phenomenal. That group has gelled really well, and on both sides of the ball. When I go in and I sit on the offensive side, or I go in and sit on the defensive side, you got a lot of former coordinators in both of those rooms, and so the ideas fly. The best of the best rises to the top, no matter if it's the actual coordinator or one of the assistants. So it's just a program built on trust and love and family, and no one puts themselves above what we're trying to do.
I got to see you live this past week at Groesbeck, and obviously you look at yourself, at your team on a state level, and everybody says Alvin Mosley. Of course, he deserves a lot of the accolades, but man, there's athletes everywhere. Amir Johnson, Braylon Fisher, you got Jordan Butler out there, you got your defensive players. Just talk about the athletes you have on your team and how they kind of come together and play off each other.
Yeah, I think everyone knows Alvin, and for good reason. He's a special, phenomenal player. I'll plug it here. I think he deserves his 5th star. He's amazing. And in his playoff run, he's played both sides of the football for us, something we've kind of held close to the vest. And he'll continue to do that on our run. to make us the best version of ourselves. But I mean, we got a tremendous amount of kids that can do some things. Tracy Richardson, he's up in Minnesota this weekend, taking it all in before he gets ready to sign on Wednesday with the Golden Gophers. We got a lot of young players on the defense. Number 25, Caden Hobson, gets after the quarterback, makes things difficult. Cameron Alakeja, number 7 on defensive linebacker, who has over 100 tackles. Phenomenal football player. You got CJ in the secondary, took an interception back to the house and makes a lot of plays. And then, obviously on the offensive side, our quarterback, Braylon Fisher, is special. That kid's thrown for 3,000 yards this year. He's really close. I think he's one away from 40 touchdown passes on the year, and he only has 5 interceptions. So he checks the football, and then he can pull it down and run. We got a sophomore, Dedrick Polk, who's eking towards 1,000 yards rushing, and he shares the backfield with a really talented senior that came to us from Marshall last year, or for the last 3 years, moving to our neighborhood, and just been, those two have created a dynamic duo with him and Peyton Long. So we got tremendous players all over the place, and they're hungry, and they make us really versatile.
Well, I'll end this with the Kilgore game. Me and Step always talk about how when the East Texas boys come into town, it almost feels like Debo in the movie Friday. They come in to grab your chain, regardless of where you're at. Your thoughts on playing a team with that kind of pedigree, and you guys are just building your legacy right now.
Yeah, we have a tremendous amount of respect for them, and coming out of that district, we understand that it's tough, and Region 3 is tough no matter where you are. And so we understand that state runner-ups, they're hungry, they want this, their fans are great, and they're hungry, and they let it be known. But I'll tell you this, man, our group is tough, our group is hungry, our group wants it. And like I told you the first time we talked earlier before the season, it's really a focus on Crawford. Our motto, our belief, our culture is us versus us. And so we're just going to continue to believe in being us and doing what we do, and come in there and play. It's kind of a nameless, faceless opponent kind of way we look at every game. It's just we play to our standard, and we're going to continue to have success. And that's the way we view every football game.
Well, it's going to be a fun game. You went from a quaint 3A stadium in Groesbeck to one of the top stadiums in the Houston area up at Huntsville. We'll have a camera there. Excited to follow you guys, and thank you for joining me, Coach.
Hey, thank you for having me.
The Houston area Chevy dealers. Visit your nearest Chevy dealer to test drive our award-winning products. Parker University. Check out our bachelor's degree in strength and human performance today.
The warm-up is brought to you by Kinder's Texas Bowl. The Big 12 and SEC face-off at NRG Stadium on December 27th. Join the waitlist for tickets at kinderstexasbowl.com.
All right, I appreciate it, Coach Jackson. Hey, let's analyze a couple more games, and let's do that in the agenda, where we talk about a game up at Baylor, and it's kind of like a rematch. They played 2 years ago. They played 3 years ago. They're playing again now. DeSoto and Willis. DeSoto is a wrecking ball, and Jermaine Bishop has backpack that fits like 50 guys in it because he's carrying them all the way into the deep into the playoffs. The game he had last week was unreal. What do you think is going to happen at Baylor this week?
Yeah, man, 11-2 Willis, 10-3 DeSoto. Willis coming off a thrilling 38-32 win over Forney, as you mentioned. You saw the numbers. Jermaine Bishop, 329 yards receiving and 3 touchdown catches. Oh, wait, there's more. 4 rushes for 15 yards and a TD run, and he completed 2 of 3 passes for 40 yards. He returns punts and kicks and everything else. The guy can do it all. I tell you what,
he's smiling over there because he's going to Texas too. I know.
I was going to say the Longhorns better make some room for him next season in the receiver rotation. But did you quietly see what quarterback Lincoln Frazier did though? I mean, 481 yards passing, not too bad.
He's not a freshman anymore. Right?
No,
he's moved up to sophomore.
4 TD passes. He's definitely, because teams are going to find a way to shut down Bishop at some point, at least we think. So it's really important for Frazier to step up and have a big game, and he'll need it this week against DeSoto. I really like Ethan Feaster, by the way, the receiver over there at DeSoto. He averages over 100 yards per game receiving, close to 1,300 yards this year, while Sarad Baker, of course, 163 yards rushing and close to 2,000 yards this season, 29 touchdowns. But you know what? It all starts up front with their huge offensive line. Legend Howe, by the way, the quarterback, 22 touchdown passes. He's got some big boys in front of him. These three guys, all they got to do is just make sure that the line of scrimmage is taken care of, and they go darting through. And they got so many big play threats. You know, I'll tell you, the one thing I took from last week, Ward, after watching DeSoto jump out on top of College Park early, 21-7, and they cruised on to their big win. And I might add, Camden Hughes, QB for College Park, was out with an injured ankle. But DeSoto has so much speed, so much firepower, similar to Duncanville, who jumped all over Klein Collins. They were up 28-0 early on. Those two teams are so similar, DeSoto and Duncanville. They're hard to beat, you know what I mean? Because they got everything it takes to win a state title. You can definitely count on that.
Yeah, and if you ask the pundits around the state of Texas, they'll tell you that it's probably two guys fighting for MVP of the whole state going against each other. Jermaine Bishop and Sherrod Baker, the way Sherrod Baker's been playing. So it'll be a good one. I'll be at that one, by the way. And we have one more rematch to talk to you about, but this one may not be as close as we might think. Tidehaven against East Bernard, trying to rise up through the 3A Division II here.
You know, I didn't know what to expect when I saw Tidehaven, when I got to see them earlier this year against East Bernard, I might add. But the one thing that really stood out was Boogie Galvan. So we got two Boogie references in this warm-up today. But Galvan has been sensational. He's a playmaker for Tidehaven. You know, he had a touchdown rushing, touchdown receiving, makes big plays in the secondary. He's kind of one of those guys that can do it all. Tidehaven won this game 59-6 earlier this year at Tidehaven. I was talking with their principal. I remember he said, hey, we will see East Bernard again in week 4 of the playoffs. Sure enough, he was right. Julian Stockton, he's another big threat in the backfield for Tidehaven, 115 yards rushing per game. Of course, Tidehaven coming off a 31-3 win over Blanco. East Bernard beat Lexington, who's a perennial powerhouse, 45-21. They beat Poth the week before that, 30-27. But I'm just telling you right now, I don't see anybody stopping this Tidehaven train. I think they're going to go win it all this year.
They're definitely on a mission. All right, well, go catch a game because the other games that we didn't even mention, Columbus and Yoakum, where Jeff Power will be at.
I'll be there.
That's another rematch game. And there's TAPS finals. We got Houston Second Baptist in a final game. So go catch it out. And also Barbers Hill, holding the flag down in the Houston area for 5A Division I. They just keep winning. They're going to have to go into the belly of the beast to play Port Arthur Memorial. That thing will be about 75% Port Arthur fans. They travel quite well. All right, well, let's end this thing by showing you the rankings, the coaches' rankings, and we'll highlight the teams that are still in the playoffs. Go catch a game because next week it's the state semifinals. Jeff, I'll see you again next week.
Sounds good.